once in 7 moons.
Well, hey everybody, how are y'all doing today? My name is Deficiency Productions with a Z, and today I'd like to tell you about my current dark fantasy Souls-like JRPG project amalgam thing.
Throne.
You can check it out over at my deficiencyproductions.itch.io, and you can follow me on Twitter at DeficiencyP.
Okay, here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are now listening to RPG Maker Cola.
Hey RPG Maker Cola listeners! Thank you for tuning in. I hope you're having a fine day, or at least as fine a day as you can. I hope you've grabbed a cool icy can of RPG Maker Cola beverage from your local store. I'm stocking it there now, if it's safe out there for you to do so, that is. I've heard they're pretty cheap right now. Yeah, that's my sale. Welcome back to your fizzy soda-filled source of content for game development opinions that mean very little in the grand scheme of things. It's your favorite RPG Maker podcast, RPG Maker Cola. I'm your host Benny, also known as Cash, also known as the Puzzle Snob, also known as the Always Sometimes Awkward, and this is the place for you. It's a chill space where we get together skilled developers from the RPG Maker community to chat cordially and occasionally non-cordially about game development, game design, and probably a whole bunch of unrelated other stuff too. It's casual, it's cool, it's cola. Now today's a very special day. I'm about to have an incredible conversation with two guests, both of whom have developed games that I personally admire greatly. They're prolific in their work, their games exhibit biting social commentary, they have acerbic wit, the works. In my humble opinion, they write very deeply and meaningfully, in thought-provoking, philosophically engaging ways that are not afraid to challenge the norm. In short, both of their games are very well written indeed. But on to our first guest. I would like to introduce someone who I would say creates games that intimately explore the difficult choices that affect both our personal lives and the lives of those around us. Creating alongside Jake Reardon, they exploded onto the scene with the hit game Always Sometimes Monsters, a story of life, love, and the things we'll go through to find happiness in both. Now, this game was a game I remember was one of those successful games that was released a little while after To the Moon, but with a success that I hadn't really seen since that often in RPG Maker games. A game that revolved around choice, circumstance, and consequence, with a grey upon grey morality. Ooh. This game was dense with thematic resonance and full of branching story paths that were dictated by your personal decisions. Upon the success of that game, they released further thoughtful games including Karen, an outrage simulator, Doggone Golfing, and the sequel to Always Sometimes Monsters, Sometimes Always Monsters, which expanded upon the choice element and provided new life simulation mechanics and relationship building. All this they did under their moniker Vagabond Dog, of which our guest today is the creative director behind such company. Their Discord server is pumping, their live streams are great, and their games are published by Devolver Digital. This is the illustrious and grand Justin Amirkhani. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going? I mean, we used to be published by Devolver Digital. We're like totally independent now.
Oh crap, I got that wrong now. Oh yeah, Vagabond Dog is not published by Devolver Digital. It was just Always Sometimes Monsters that was. So yeah. I think they're self-publishing now, I think. Anyway, time to flee that era. Now's a good place to move on to our next guest, who also hails from a narrative-based background. I found their games to be very well written indeed, focusing on psychological truths that people often can't bring themselves to face. Now, I remember encountering their game Actual Sunlight, which was like a beam of light in a dark place, or maybe a deep beam of dark in a light place, I'm not sure. This mature and dramatic story seemed to address social and personal issues of a person who found it difficult to get motivation to do things. Taking a walk on the thin line between hope and despair, it was an interactive story about love, depression, and corporations. They followed up this interesting introspective story with Little Red Lie, a contemporary adventure about debt, family, and the truth about honesty. Now, they're just the author of such incredible, innovative games, and I'm extremely happy to have them on board. And they also happen to be the writer behind such games as Superliminal and The Invisible Hand. It's the one, the only, Will O'Neill. Hi.
Hey, thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, it's a privilege to have both of you on board, and thanks for making the time to hang out with us.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're all good old RPG Maker boys.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
And now that you, our listeners, I'm pointing at you, yeah, are well acquainted with today's guests, let's hop on over to the Buzz Corner. Welcome to the Buzz Corner. It's a little corner where we talk about games we're pretty interested in. I've asked each of our guests to bring one game they like the look of, and I made it easy for them. They don't have to play them, but at least they are interested in how they're looking. The game I'm bringing today is Beetle Ninja by Prosciutto Man. Now, Beetle Ninja's the story of an early 20s ninja for hire, Montreal St. Luc, the Beetle Ninja. After accidentally unleashing a cataclysmic entity which is set to destroy the world in 2 weeks, Beetle Ninja must work to prevent the realization of the incoming cataclysm, partner with a slew of different ninjas, and defeat hordes of devious monsters as you work against the clock to stop the end of the world. This game just looks really, lovely, and I love the graphics, and it's just got a really playful attitude. I did play a little bit of it on stream. There's ninjas, and there's you can choose between different ninjas, and you can choose different paths and things like this. And I've had them on the podcast before, but it was just really fun to play. Non-linear. It had some Majora's Mask vibes about it. You could just do anything within a certain time period before, say, the world ending, and you just have to try and figure out how to solve that problem. I haven't solved that problem, but the graphics are cute and full of character, and the story, the dialogue itself is quite humorous. I played this one for a little bit, a couple of hours, and I enjoyed most of what I played of it. Yeah, so that's what I brought to the Buzz Corner. Justin, what would you like to bring to the Buzz Corner?
So my homeboy Riggy 2K3, he's been working on this game called Yeezy RPG for a while, and he just dropped his trailer right before New Year's, and oh my god, this game has got so much style. If you are a Kanye West fan, I think you're obviously going to love it. If you are a person who's kind of into Kanye as a meme, I think there's a lot of touch points, and it might actually get you into the music a little bit more. Or I don't know. It's just like a pseudo classic JRPG where you play as Kanye West, but it's got so much style, and Riggy 2K3 is a dev who's participated in a bunch of game jams that we've run on the Vagabond Dog Discord server, and homeboy never disappoints. He made this one silent game where you played as a spider, trying to crawl through a garden and stuff. He's very, very talented, but he needs to update his engine really bad because he's been literally working in RM2K3 since probably 2K3.
Yeah, it's crazy what they can do with 2K3 when they try and stretch the boundaries. And I also noticed there was that game Kanye Quest 3030 that came out in 2013 or something, a while ago. But this one looks like it actually has quite a few more custom assets and a little bit more polish to it, I think.
As celebrity-based games go, everything's just trying to fill the void from the Charles Barkley game sequel that's never going to come out.
Right.
So yeah, that's what creates a space in the air to do it.
But yeah, I think in the Kanye Quest 3030 game, you battle other rappers and stuff, but in this you're battling, I guess, rats and trying to host concerts and things like that, so there's actually an involved storyline beyond the memory, I suppose.
Oh, yeah, it goes deep. I've been saying, I almost called him Yeezy. Riggy streams, and I like to just sit and watch him work, especially just it's a trip to see I've mostly worked in VX Ace, and I just like watching 2K3 work, because it's like, Jesus Christ, like you have such weird limitations, like you can't like adjust speed via like the variable, like you have to like speed up. Like the steps he has to take are like fascinating. If you're a fan looking at under the hood of RPG Maker games, it's a worthwhile browse.
Yeah, he's got really good taste too. I'm looking at the trailer right now, and like the photo he uses of Kanye in the black hoodie, that really is like Kanye at his RPG Makerist. Do you know what I mean? Like that's a heroic outfit, and his in the battle sequences, like his facial expression is like truly perplexed and like concerned. And he's fighting rats, which is another RPG standby. So he's paying homage to the greats here, and I love it. I like everything about it.
And it's got personality in it too. Like the first last I checked, like when the first time you load it up, it like asks you what your favorite album is, and then like that affects things,
Yeah.
which is awesome.
Well, I like too that he's like it's Kanye West, but the world around him is very much just basic RPG makerness, and he really stands out. But I imagine that's how Kanye West experiences the real world, like himself as singular and everything else is very cartoony and ridiculous. So I like that too.
He's entering the greats of the RPG protagonists, such as Cloud and Zidane. You know, it's Yeezy's in there. He's got to make his mark.
I'm looking forward to this. He says it's coming out this summer, so I'm really hyped on this.
How wide is the range of albums you can choose? Like, is it for real? Can you go back to like College Dropout, or does it only?
Yeah,
like...
of course. No, all of them.
Okay,
You can pick up Cudi and you can get the Kids See Ghosts stuff going on.
Yeah.
Get him to join your party. There's the conversations with Dre. Like, there's a lot of stuff in there. Like, it's a big game.
Because there's multiple generations of Yeezy now, right? I mean, like you literally could have grown up with one Weezy or another. Like I'm a college dropout, late registration. Like when I was in school, that was Yeezy to me. But nowadays, you would be 808s and Heartbreaks would be for most people like their undergrad years, or I don't know, even later albums than that, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm a Yeezus.
You're a Yeezus guy? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm personally
Twisted Dark Fantasy is I think that is the big Kanye album that is almost like the hub and the nexus of all Kanyeism. Like everyone agrees that is almost a central point.
his maximalist album. I'm personally a Kids See Ghost kind of guy. So
yeah.
I like the deranged kind of, but then the religious undertones and very interesting sort of juxtaposition that brings. Yeah, pretty. I like that it also talks about him as a Christian genius billionaire, and the world is waiting for him to deliver, quote unquote, the album of the life, and the clock is ticking. So very, very clear.
Yeah,
you know.
That's not a typo, by the way. It's not the album of his life. It's the album of the life.
Of the life.
That's not a typo. That's
Definite
not
article.
a mistranslation. The album of the life.
His life is dope, and he does dope shit. That's it.
Yeah, well, what's buzzing for you at the moment?
So, I mean, for me, my buzz is not an RPG Maker game, but it's one that could have been made in RPG Maker with almost no problems. I mean, I guess we'll talk more about making other engines sort of do similar things. And for me, it's a game called Devil Express by Bad Pet is the name of the studio. And it's a very small collective here in Toronto. It's up on itch. You can check it out. And basically, it is a game. Think of it as a sort of super small indie Death Stranding. In it, you play a courier for a new delivery service called Devil Express. Your character's named Worf, and you're a kind of doggish man type person. And you basically go to this building and you have deliveries to make to all these people within the building. And throughout the course of the game, you realize that the building is cursed and the things that you help people with are not necessarily the most straightforward kinds of deliveries. You're, in the end, just helping people connect with each other and connect with the things that they need to grow as people and grow in their relationships. So again, explores a lot of those like Death Stranding types of themes, but in a format that is a lot more sort of lo-fi, and that I think has kind of a lot more heart. And it has like great writing, tons of memorable characters, and I don't want to spoil too much about it, but it's a lot of fun and it doesn't take too long to get through. So yeah, so for me, Devil Express is really where it's at. I don't know if either of you played Devil Express or have heard of it.
No, haven't.
Nothing.
it's like it's the one thing that strikes me the most immediately is the vertical presentation. It's like it's designed to be played on a phone, I suppose. Or
well, I think it has that kind of like portrait orientation, like as if you were a phone game. But I think it's more about creating like a tighter sense of intimacy between the people talking, because it's only sort of back and forth. It's only two-person conversations. And like I found it really disorienting at first too, but over time it kind of grew on me, the kind of like tightness of the frame around the two people talking to each other. And I guess it's sort of like the weird closeness of a delivery guy, of a stranger coming to your door and knocking on it, and it being this kind of like social exchange where it's like, someone is supposed to come up to your door and have kind of an extended conversation potentially with you. So I liked it. Yeah, but you're right. The orientation of it is one of the oddest things.
Yeah, it's sort of set in a doorway most of the time or against a wall, so it's kind of...
Yeah, there's a conversation in an elevator, all these like tight spaces. So like, the framing of it really kind of works. It helps a lot more than like a wider landscape kind of shot would naturally put it in.
I like games that play with different form factors like that. What was the Jason Rohr game? It was like 14 pixels tall and very long.
Passage.
Passage. Yes.
Oh, yes.
Passage. Yeah, that was one of the like big pivotal indies. That was one of like the first, I think, big like indie games or art games. So yeah, if anyone hasn't played Passage, you're probably missing out on, I guess, what's considered to be like canon indie.
Education.
Yeah. So that would be from like 2006. That'd be like, I guess, even before like Braid, even before Soulja Boy was ripping on John Blow. Like that's almost like that's like pre-indie. That's like,
that's good
pre-XBLA. Yeah. Passage is dope. And you like Jason Rohr overall.
Oh,
right?
dude, love him.
Yeah. You like, what's the other game there? The
One Hour, One Life. Yeah.
1 Hour, One Life. Yeah. Which is a really cool concept too.
Amazing social experience.
Did Jason create that game where there were two? Was it Passage? There were two, or a different game. There were two. There was like a couple, and they have to try and get to each other through like a platforming level, but then strange things happened. I'm being very vague. It's not.
That's Braid. Now you're thinking of Braid.
Yeah. Or almost all games. No.
No. Well, Passage is.
Yeah.
You could take a spouse, but you didn't have to.
Yeah, but it's if you don't, it's like easier to get in. Like it's a 14 pixel tall game that's very long, and like it's kind of scrunched across. Like as you pass through the game, like time dilates, and there's like these corridors, and if you're like with your spouse, you're holding hands the whole time, and so you can't get through some hallways that are like narrow. And so like there's treasure chests and stuff, and it's easier to get the treasure if you're alone, but then you like miss out on like I don't want to spoil it. It's like a 5-minute game really if you play it, so I don't want to spoil it because the ending is kind of like one of those very first gut wrenches I ever got in indie games.
Yeah,
everything is a metaphor.
I was actually thinking of Jason Rohr's Gravitation. That's the one that I just looked it up now. It's a different game by Jason, but I'm not familiar with that one, but I'm not a Jason Rohr scholar. Justin, did you know that one?
I just like, I like Passage, I like 1 Hour, One Life, and Death Asleep. And never got into Castle Doctrine either.
Well, Castle Doctrine was like a very controversial one. I think that was kind of the one where like certain elements of the press were like, this is too far, goes too much, because you could like, you were invading other innocent people's homes and murdering them, and I thought it was kind of gratuitous. Interestingly enough, that's the kind of game that, was visceral and horrible in a way that I think an RPG maker community probably would have been like, oh yeah, this is nothing. Like very like harsh sadistic violence is no stranger in that corner of the world. So yeah, but it was a bit much for people, I think, at the time.
I remember something like the Doom series made an RPG Maker was just gratuitous violence and unconscionable things, particularly Doom's 4. It's quite a legendary game in that aspect where they actually banned it from certain sites. So
right.
Yes.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think dungeoneering is like the most brutal, uncomfortable thing I've ever seen, and I mean that's me saying it as somebody who makes really uncomfortable games. That was on another level of discomfort.
Was that Beautiful Escape Dungeoneer?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
I talk with Colunio quite a lot, actually, and they've got a recent game, Therapist Mind Manager, which I think is just exceptional. I encourage everyone to go play that. It was released this year.
Yeah, that and the original Lisa. I mean, that's also like not the later one, but the original one. That was, I mean, extremely disturbing. So yeah, so I mean, RPG Maker is certainly always like been willing to push the boundaries as far as content is concerned, and I think it's because it's in a place it is a tighter, smaller community that doesn't get that much attention from the mainstream press necessarily. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so they're able to explore those kinds of things.
There's that, and I think it's the accessibility of it. Like you can. You can just like very relatively easily get into making something, and the cost of entry is super low, and it doesn't like the point of inception of the idea to actually content on the screen is super, super low. And we'll probably talk about this later, and when we're talking about like what we dig on the engine and that kind of thing. But like, man, yeah, there has been some stuff made. I'm down a rabbit hole suddenly remembering things from 2005. That I'm not going to bring up specifically, but
exactly.
But
there was one particular game that was
that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, one of the first games that was actually like it's. I don't even want to mention the topic, but like it was one of those first games that people started going, okay, video games are causing violence. It was what and they pointed at this game, going, see, this is what a person made, so don't play games or make games. It's like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Was a bit over the line, but still. Yeah. Wow. Devil Express.
We're off track. So check out Devil Express, not visceral or disturbingly sadistic or violent, but really quite heartwarming and a really nice story with a lot of heart and awesome, cool characters that you'll remember, and cool art and cool music, and just a great little game. I think when I play Devil Express, I'm just like, this is everything that indie games should be, because it's a great little thing.
Absolutely, taking risks, looking good while doing it. Yeah. And there's a character that's a burger. And it's a Strand game.
Totally Strand game.
Yeah. Cool. So that's what's been buzzing for us at the moment. And now we're going to move on to games that we've been playing, maybe? Hey, have you been playing games? Yes, I'm talking to you, listener, standing over there. If not, that's all cool. But if so, you can, or if not, you can still listen here as each of us talk about a game we've been currently playing or have played in the past and explain what we liked or disliked about it. I'm going to bring up the Zachtronics games in general, particularly Space Chem and other games like, I think it's Opus Magnum. Yeah, Opus Magnum, Shenzhen IO, and also Infinifactory TIS-100. These games are basically, like, some of these games are the closest things I have experienced to feeling like a software programmer. Like, you have inputs, you have outputs, you have things that you're receiving, and then you have to rearrange them and use logical loops and for loops and if statements and all these kinds of things to create the desired output. Now, that may not sound fun to the average, listener, but it's actually very strategic. It's got tons of levels of gameplay and interest to it, and these games are not easy either. They get more and more difficult, and they have the added kind of difficulty level if you want to challenge yourself, where it's not only you can solve the problems that are inherent within Space Chem and other puzzle games, but you can try and make them more efficient and quicker over time. And that's something that I think was really interesting about the emergent gameplay of these games. It's just constantly trying to find more efficient ways to execute these loops and stuff. It's sort of like Factorio, but if you zoomed into the factory and tried to make it more efficient. I love these games. They're great. And I also hate these games because they cause me endless frustration, and I keep coming back to them.
Yeah, I've played Shenzhen. That's the only puzzle Zachtronics game I've played. I'd be interested to know, Ben, what your thoughts are in terms of like any narrative stuff that may be in Space Chem, because one thing that a lot of people might not know is that, like, oddly enough, or not odd, I suppose, but like interestingly enough, Zachtronics has like one of the best writers in indie games working for them, Matthew Seiji, who made Eliza, which was a visual novel that Zachtronics put out, and it was sort of like their exceptional game. It was like, this is the Zachtronics game that's not not a puzzle game. But I thought even the story stuff in like Shenzhen that I played was extremely well written, like all the emails between you and your characters, and I'm like, oh my god, like it's kind of unusual for a studio that like focuses really on just puzzle and gameplay to kind of have such a heavyweight writer, but I think it really adds a lot, and I think probably Matthew plays a pretty pivotal role in more design stuff than you would think. So is there any like story stuff in Space Chem or any of the other ones?
There probably is. There is like logs and stuff, but I must admit, I didn't get too far into them.
Oh my god, I guarantee you're missing out. Like, he's an incredible writer.
I wonder, what was their name? Matt. I'm not sure. Maybe they came in later in the game. I'm not too sure, because Space Chem was their first game, 2011, I believe.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah. So it's Matthew Seiji. Maybe you're right. If it was their first game, I thought maybe he might not have even been there, but I think so.
Maybe. Yeah.
So yeah.
I'll definitely pay more attention to it later on, because I just kind of said puzzles, and there's a little bit of text, but I'll get into the puzzles. But I like Shenzhen, but I'm not good enough at puzzles. Like, that's the other thing. I find these games frustrating because I'm too stupid to play them.
Yeah, I've never played them because like I've seen these games plenty, but I look at them and they look like work to me. So tell me how would I find this fun? How is it not worse than work?
Because it's work. That's why it's fun.
Yeah.
Different work than I'm doing. Okay.
It's a type of work that some people find engaging, right? It's just like,
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, it's like levels of strategy.
I don't like feeling dumb, and it would make me feel. I'm certain I would feel dumb playing this.
I think most people who enjoy these games have some level of aptitude for them that makes it difficult for them to understand why other people don't like them.
Right.
That's a thing. There's a language to this stuff.
The smart people.
Yeah, well, I must admit, there's certain, like I've played a couple. I haven't played Shenzhen, but I have played TIS 100 and Space Chem. But it seems that some of them are more friendly than others. I think TIS 100 was just straight up like, you're on a console, it's black and white, there's just text, and it's a bit less, it's way less friendly than, say, Space Chem, where you're getting molecules and smashing them together. So I think they vary in that sort of aspect. Space Chem is a lot more friendly. I'd recommend probably. I've only played those two, but definitely don't start with.
Opus Magnum is the one that's getting my attention visually. Like, this one looks crazy cool.
Yeah, my friends played Opus Magnum, and it seems, I think is it their most recent puzzle game? I'm not too sure. Maybe they've got a new one.
Probably the most recent puzzle game, yeah.
Because they've got a tactics game that they've created with mixed reviews.
Oh, Mobius Front, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I've been meaning to play Eliza for a long time as well, because I'm thoroughly interested in psychologically centered games that are accurate with that kind of thing. So
yeah, I mean, Eliza's fantastic. I mean, and also it's not even that much of a departure as you'd think from their kind of like focus on like computers and systems, because Eliza, of course, it's all based on like a computer programmer that was supposed to be like a psychoanalyst. I won't ruin it, but it's like, it's not as far from the heart of sort of what they're usually interested in as you think. I like the fact that all their games are kind of based around real world things, like, you know, Shenzhen and TIS, and yeah, it's cool. I feel like it makes it a little more resonant.
Oh, it definitely has that level of immersion. You feel, it's got that flavor that makes you feel like you're doing something important and story related.
Yeah. Or it makes you think like you're doing work, unfortunately. That's right. It kind of breaks hard in either direction. Because yeah, like Shenzhen IO, Justin's right. It's like it's actually like, it's a simulator of working at a Chinese electronics firm. It's not, there's very little like that makes it any different than actually doing it.
And I do have that love-hate relationship with them, because I will love them when I'm playing them, but when I suck at it, I'll just like throw the controller down. I don't have a controller, but I might as well. And then the just sort computer. I'll come crawling back later. Like that's the type of relationship I have with these games.
Yeah.
It's very difficult, but you feel vindicated when you get at least one thing right.
Yeah, well, it's a big difference. I mean, I feel like if you are a person who primarily plays games for the story, in a way, like you are just not even familiar with the struggle of what a game is. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I usually play games just to get through them. Like Justin, I also get annoyed if there's really any pushback at all. Like, I expect to just kind of make my way and grind through and get it done. So when things are actually hard and you actually lose, I'm like, why am I losing? I'm trying to finish this so I can get on with my life. But I think there's like a fundamentally different two types of players. There's players who are really in it to play a game and to win, lose, that kind of like war games mindset. And then there's people who are just like, I'm just here to kind of consume content in an interactive way. And it's a fundamental split.
Those who actually just hate games and want to get it over with.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we can talk more about this later, but I don't think I actually like video games. I think I regard them very poorly, and I think they're bad for people, and so on and so forth. So
it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Check that out, Space Chem, or not, depending on whether it's for you.
Yeah.
Justin, you noted that you were going to bring up random AAA trash.
Yeah.
But or a particular game. What do you bring today?
A game that some of us might not have heard about. Tell us more about this game, Justin.
So I beat Minecraft for the first time last night. Which is
what is that? First of all, what does that even mean to beat I didn't even know you could beat it. So for those of us in the back.
Okay, so you have to like it's a bunch of steps. Like you build a portal, you go into the netherworld hell, basically. You go collect a bunch of stuff, you use the stuff to find another base, you go to the base, you mix the things to make the things to put the things here, and then you make a portal, and that takes you into the end. And the end is like this big fight with a dragon. And and then, so I've been playing for the past like 2-3 months, our Discord server. We started it as a joke. Like, we're like, hey, what if we had a Minecraft server? So we started our Minecraft server as a joke, but then we all got really into it, and like, like the Christian Minecraft server meme, we like went hard on that, and then somebody built a giant cross, and then we like go from village to village, erecting giant crosses and converting all the villagers to our holy ways. To the point where we now we have multiple cities that like sprawl and have like factories in them and everything. It's insanity, like how invested everybody got into it. And it culminated in like over the holiday, we built like this Christmas town, and we finally decided to take down the Ender Dragon and get the credits to roll. And that was last night.
And everybody is role playing as followers of Jesus Christ.
I mean, we build crosses.
Okay.
I didn't say that.
And hopefully not, other things, the things that people generally, when they play Minecraft, within 5, minutes of playing the game, they're bound to just create a certain symbol just off in the distance, and you have to sort of avoid that.
It's huge. I mean, like we had a player build a pagan church in there, in protest, and there's Coda. He built apartments and actually started renting them out to people, and then we've got lore, and it just turned into a really fun experience. Like, I've never played it multiplayer before, and it was just really a good time. But now I'm slowly being drawn into the Will O'Neill world of playing AAA mainstream garbage, and I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying that kind of as well too.
So you're playing
Does anything
Sea of Thieves
spur
as well?
you through this?
Sorry?
What was that? What?
Oh, sorry. I was going to ask, like, how do you know to go fight this? Right? Like, just quickly for the story of Minecraft thing, like, how do you know you're supposed to do story stuff? Is it like a letter? You get a letter at the start of the game that is like a chain of quests? It's not RPG-ish?
No.
How do you know you have to like go down into the hell world and then
the community tells you?
You just, your community tells you, or you just like, I guess the first people just figured it out, Like you can find,
nothing spurs you.
No, you can find like half broken portals and then like the pieces to fix them, and then so you can do that, or you can just like know how to do it on your own. But like to get to the actual end stuff, like you've got to be like either experimenting like crazy, or just like hit the wiki.
Yeah.
So it's either visual, it's either environmental storytelling, or hey, this is the most popular game of all time. People will just tell each other.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, say no more.
I
Sorry for
remember
that sidetrack.
No, that wasn't a sidetrack, because I remember I joined at the point when Minecraft was still beta and it was just released, and I entered the world kind of like, what is this? You can create and delete blocks at will, and you can sort of craft your own reality sort of thing. And then it was almost to the point that they released things later on that were kind of guiding you towards building certain things. But at the beginning, there was no like, they didn't even teach you how to build a sword or a pickaxe or something. You just had to somehow come upon, you have to put 2 blocks in this way and you have to put it in this, but you had to do a lot of experimentation if you were by yourself to actually figure those things out. So it was one of those things that was always driven by the wiki. It felt like it was like you almost needed the wiki as a partner piece to the game in order to play it effectively.
Yeah, that was like the last time I played Minecraft before this sprint, and like the difference is insane in how much stuff they've added. And like, because it's been like 11 or more years of updates. Like, even if you're right, like it's a lot of content that's been added.
Now there's the ray tracing.
Literally.
Yeah.
It feels like the most, in my opinion, the most innovative and great game to be dunked upon as being only for kids.
Yeah, no, it's the greatest game of all time for sure. Because it's ubiquitous, and it's like Lego, right? Literally, like, in the sense that it's like not just a toy or a thing; it's a system. It's an entire structure. It's massive. There's never been anything like it. There probably never will be again, or not for a very long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that actually linked to Zachtronics, I think, because Zachtronics created Infiniminer, which was one of the major influences for Minecraft.
Oh yeah, that was the game that Minecraft ripped off, right?
Yeah, that and Dwarf Fortress.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. And the new Dwarf Fortress is coming. I mean, listen. Justin, you talk about things feeling like jobs, but if anything's been made clear, it's that gamers love jobs. Like,
no,
do you know what I mean?
totally.
Like, they do, and it's just
I would farm potatoes, and then I finally figured out how to make a factory, and I made a chicken harvesting factory. Like, you get a sense of purpose, you know.
Yep. It's lizard brain shit. It's just human beings just feel that motivation, right? Little dopamine.
Anything to stave off that sense that life is truly meaningless for one more second.
Yeah.
Will, what have you been playing lately? Maybe.
So I've been playing Paradise Killer, and I just finished it a little while ago, and it was phenomenal. I loved it. Paradise Killer. It's by Kaizen Gameworks. It's published by Fellow Traveler. And basically you play Lady Love Dies, who is an exiled detective who belongs to a group of elites in this society known as the Syndicate. And in this society, you and your fellow members of the Syndicate basically go from world to world, enslaving populations and directing their psychic energies to resurrection of long dead gods and this kind of thing. So what's interesting about it is that you are a detective who's trying to solve a murder mystery because one of your fellow elites in the Syndicate has been murdered. But you're part of this group that is like all hung up on the procedure of justice and finding out who killed this important person, while also being part of a group that like thoughtlessly just sacrifices and slaughters tons of like underlings and people who really you have no regard for whatsoever. So this kind of like fundamental pull between yourself as part of this evil cabal, but also having to be this person who upholds justice within it, creates this tension that I think builds this really fascinating world and lore around it. And it has like this really cool vaporwave visual style that I think sort of creates this contrast between beauty and sort of capitalist excess with this fundamental ugliness of what it is that who you are and what you do. And it's just awesome. Like I was blown away. I was totally ready for it to be cool because it's like very much based around vaporwave, and it's also like super influenced by Suda51. If you played any of his games, Killer is Dead and Silver Case and all that, but like beyond the coolness was just sort of a story that had like a lot of criticism for itself, and the kind of characters that you portray and the people that you're trying to save. And like in the end, you like pass judgment on everyone else, and like of course nearly everyone else is guilty, but I actually executed even the people who weren't, because they were all part of like an awful system that I wanted to hastily bring about the end of as rapidly as possible. And of course, I don't know, I think it's been long enough to have be spoilers, but what I will say is that in the end, the one person who really is innocent, you are not even able to spare. The game does not allow you to do it. I think it's sort of a final criticism of this world and the characters it inhabits. So sorry, long monologue about Paradise Killer, but like awesome. And have you guys played it? And like, what do you guys know about it?
Oh,
I know nothing.
I just told you.
I'm watching
We
this.
were busy playing Minecraft. I was out doing these sophisticated things.
Right.
Sorry, I was on my phone. No. I'm looking at this trailer. I'm thinking, what even is this game? It's got so many different elements that kind of crash together. Open world mystery and and just like crazy visuals and like all these different elements meshed together. I start to think this looks like a fake trailer. Like it looks like something that can't exist.
Like one of these indie games that could only be indie. Like if you were to pitch this at any AAA meeting, they'd be like, get the fuck out of here. Like, are you kidding me? Like, it's wild. And I think the developers are like ex-AAA people. So they're people who left that world because they had something they were passionate about and they really wanted to do. And I mean, the only thing is, the whole vaporwave vibe is kind of cool. And I guess the other big game that came out like a couple of years back now would be like Hypnospace Outlaw, which was also really great. Justin, I know you liked Hypnospace Outlaw a lot too.
Hypnospace. I love Hypnospace.
Yeah, it was really good. And like the vaporwave aesthetic takes a while to grow on you.
Explain the parallel.
Oh no. Only the look. Literally only the visuals.
Huh.
Yeah, they're both like vaporwave inspired. The neon and the clip art and the
palettes and the mishmash of all the cultural references, I suppose, and things.
Yeah,
they got Yuri in
statues.
Here, and
yeah, exactly. All just like the crazy madness. But I think it's in Paradise Killer, it's supposed to reflect the way that wealthy and powerful people see an ugly world. With all this like gaudiness and dripping neon. Sort of superimposed over what is like kind of barren and disgusting and worthless. Yeah, it's the powerful at the end of a broken world, and that's sort of what the whole vibe of it is. Whereas Hypnospace obviously was just sort of a throwback to GeoCities. So there you go. So there's the vaporwave aesthetic doing heavy lifting all over the place. But it's dope. It's so good. Paradise Killer. Can't say enough good.
Man, open world mystery games are interesting. It's got that kind of Danganronpa, like what's it called? It's like not related to, but like people would often relate this game probably to that because it's the first thing they think of when they think.
Yeah, that or like 999 and VLR and all those games. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I think kind of close cousins in a sense to like RPG Maker stuff, because also definitely like Japanese influenced and all that kind of stuff too.
And reading.
And reading, lots of reading. Yeah, lots of games where you can't really lose. You just have to kind of get through it.
Mm. And we both know that neither of our guests here, like reading in games.
I don't know how.
No, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everyone should read what we write, but we're just going to play
course.
Fortnite and Minecraft all day.
Yeah.
We're too busy to read.
Words? What? No. Yeah. Excellent. Wow. Paradise Killer. Go play it. Minecraft. Go play it.
Hell yeah.
Join the server if you can. I don't know if it's public. Yeah. So now we're going to move on from games that we've played to some topics we must discuss, because this is a podcast and it's serious. Hey, welcome to this section. Here's the part of the podcast where we ask the serious questions. Yeah, Justin and Will, I'm going to ask you a few questions about your process, your history, and things of that nature. Firstly, I'd like to ask, and just feel free to jump in whenever you'd like, whoever would like to go first, how did you come about making games? What's your story? And if it's RPG Maker, how did you discover it?
Well, so I've always, I mean, I'm a kid, grew up in the West, so I was always around video games. And I always wanted to make games, but people told me that was not a real job. So I ended up becoming a games journalist for a while. I used to have my own podcast and do stuff like that and write freelance for a lot of magazines and newspapers and websites and all that junk. And then I kind of lost my shit one day, and I kind of left town and went on this like year-long sort of, I called it a journalism project, but it was a bit of a mental breakdown, where I would hitchhike across North America, visiting game developers, like sleeping on their couches and stealing their food kind of thing, and doing interviews with them along the way. And, I found out, a lot about game development, a lot about making games. And I realized that it was like a potential path to happiness for me. And I had then developed kind of an idea for a game. And along the road, bumped into one of the dudes from Devolver Digital. We started talking about it. It kind of gave me the motivation to go ahead and like make a prototype. I jumped into a couple different engines with my partner Jake. We ended up sticking with RPG Maker because I knew nothing about making games, and it is something that I like had mucked about with when I was a kid, like making like Dragon Ball Z fan games, the kind of thing. And so it was really easy, and that like limited time window we had when we could like bring the game to Devolver as a publisher, in terms of like idea to playable, there's nothing faster than RPG Maker. So that's kind of where we went. We just like ran with the idea, and like I had the idea for this game where you're trying to get across the country to win back the love of your life. You have a finite amount of time. The world's kind of working against you. You got to make money to travel to the next city, that kind of thing, and story stuff happens in between. That had hit me while I was on the road, and then I made a prototype. We got a deal. And then the rest is pretty public history from there.
Yeah.
That's how I got into making games.
That's such an interesting story about interviewing different developers and just kind of having that lifestyle of going around. So you said it was that particular was that inspiration that you got from talking to them that inspired you to make the games?
I just spent a lot of time, like when you're a journalist, you spend a lot of time talking about cool shit other people are doing.
Yeah.
And I realized I didn't really have anything going on in my own life. And then it had always seemed like something that was super inaccessible. And through this journey, I kind of like learned that it's just a matter of like pursuing what you want, and like there's a common trait amongst a lot of game developers, and that's like they're driven enough in their own desires to achieve a satisfying life.
Right.
And so that I wanted to kind of steer myself into that direction, and I've always had ideas for games. I've always wanted to make games since I was a kid. And so it was a matter of like that education from that journey kind of pushing me into actually doing it.
Yeah. It's an interesting catalyst. That's honestly a story that I haven't heard before when coming to making games. It's usually, hey, I played a few games when I was young and I always wanted to play them, so I just found this engine one day, rather than actually talking to tons of people and then it kind of coming through via osmosis sort of thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, I went through that phase when I was probably like, between 8 and 13, and I really decided then that I wanted to make games, but then, your parents and teachers and guidance counselors and the rest of the world at large, slap you down and say, no, you have to do something that's productive to society and contributes value.
Yeah.
And so then you're like, well, I guess if they say so, and then you put that dream away for a while until you eventually, it's that one thing that's burning in you eternally, and it's gonna happen no matter how hard you try to be a normie. It's not gonna work.
Yeah, you can only pretend so long. How about you, Will? How did you come about making games?
So my background is really more in writing. I mean, I played games all my life, but similarly, it was not something that I ever really thought I would do. I was really into theater in high school, and I wrote plays. And I mean, going back to elementary school, I used to do little HyperCard things on the Macs we had in the lab that I now realize were actually visual novels, but at the time you're just mucking around. I finished school. I did a traditional English degree, post-grad in corporate communications, and that's my day job to this day. But in the midst of that, I was working at an agency. And I was submitting some little writing pieces to various sort of lit mags and stuff like that. And one of them was McSweeney's. And McSweeney's.net, it's sort of a comedy thing. I would send them stuff, and I got through one thing, but mostly I just got a lot of rejections. And one of the things that I had submitted that didn't really break through. Actually, no, I don't think I did submit it, but it was something I was working on. Was this monologue that was just a standalone piece called "Why Kill Yourself Today When You Could Masturbate Tomorrow?" And of course, that became kind of the fundamental piece in Actual Sunlight that went on to spur everything else about it. Around that same sort of time, and I'm compressing years here, really. There was also this RPG Maker game called Unemployment Quest, which I just happened to see one day in the indie games section of this new website called, relatively new, called Kickstarter. And I thought, this is kind of really charming and funny. A guy is going to use this RPG Maker game thing to make a real life game about being unemployed in his real life. And that was what kind of got me thinking about maybe there would be a game that I could make using this if it's as straightforward as it looks, and talk about my own experiences. And at some point, the two became married. And that unused monologue and this RPG Maker thing, VX Ace, and I just started to work on what would become Actual Sunlight. And originally it was called Friends and Family, and it was going to take place after a person had committed suicide, and it was going to be about the people around them and their friends and family. And then it sort of started to center back around my own experiences at the time where I was working, and so on and so forth. And I guess, like Justin said, the rest is kind of history. I put out Actual Sunlight, and it was fairly well received, critically and otherwise. And from there, I just got interested into doing more games and writing for other studios as well. And then from there, that's now I'm talking about 2013, and then it's 7 years later, here we are. But one other thing that I wanted to add here, because for the RPG Maker Net community, who might be wondering how come Actual Sunlight was never on RPGmaker.net like everything else, and the reason is that it was actually rejected.
Yeah,
and I've dug up my old RPG Maker Net account to find it. So this is what happened when I submitted Actual Sunlight. The status is still here from April 13th, 2013. Actual Sunlight. Status denied. Reason: the tiling of the walls and ceiling are inconsistent. You can see you can see some south-facing walls, but not others. And ceiling tiles are being used out in the middle of nowhere without supporting walls. Those need to be fixed before I can approve. Game description is solidly written, by the way. That's nice, ends on a little bit of a note of praise. But for whatever reason, I never resubmitted. I think I was just okay. I think I know what it is too, because in Toronto, the streetcars are red on the exterior. So I think what I had done was I used some Spanish tiles, like some red Spanish roofing. To kind of depict the wall of a streetcar or something. I did something like that. So anyways, for that reason, I was disqualified from ever having my game on RPGmaker.net. But who knows, if it had been accepted, maybe I would have gone on to be a big part of the RPG Maker Net community. But now it was not that I never came to you. It was that you all turned me away.
I can imagine. I can see it now. Somebody who's like so into RPG Maker games and knows those tile sets back to front, like they like look at that scene and they don't see a TTC streetcar.
That's right.
They see red Spanish tiles, and
and Justin, you know me. Would I resubmit if I was denied for those reasons?
No.
Never.
Never. That's a good reason to think. I never submitted ever anything. I'm so distant from the RPG Maker community at large. Like it's just a tool. Like I have not like I'll definitely like Google and steal scripts when I need them, but like credit is given where needed. But I have never like posted on the forums or like participated in any of the. This is the most RPG Maker community I've ever done. Is this podcast?
Oh yeah, all respect to all the community. We love Yanfly. We love Yanfly.
Yeah.
You know, I know our chair. I know various people from various things. But so there's crossover. But yeah, I've never really been a part of the community. But that's the only reason why, because they were so mean to me. They were so mean to me. About my walls and my ceilings are inconsistent. Now, guys, this is April 13th. This is like months after the game has already been out, and it's like, you know. I don't know. It hurt my feelings. I guess it must have hurt my feelings. I was definitely like, There you go. That's an interesting little, just I guess, history for the RMN.net crowd.
When you got rejected from the site, I was expecting something to do with its content, not, you use some roof tile for the walls.
I think he probably got to very early in the game was like, there's just no fucking way. There's just no fucking way. We can't let this through. Are you kidding me?
Make up an excuse.
I'll give a bit of insight into the process for. They're all manually approved on RPGmaker.net. So what they do is they just look at the screenshots and they look at a few of them and they say, is there a base amount of effort put into? Oh, they use the tiles wrong. This game's probably going to be bad. Reject. That's like probably the amount of thought they put into it.
It was probably only screenshots because there's a screenshot that I submit from the streetcar. So they whoever did this probably never even looked at the game. That's why they're saying game description is solidly written. They're like, hey, congratulations on your writing in your game description, because that's all they saw. Oh my God.
I know that's exactly what they did. They do that with all of them. They're pretty much trained to try and spot games that aren't competently made, because they get so many of them that are just...
And they noticed Will's.
No, let's face it. There is a lot of like heavy filtering you've got to do, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, and they just like, nope, come back when you... I know Liberty is the CEO of RPGmaker.net, and she would just... she's just very front up, say, nope, come back when you've mapped properly.
There you go.
But, who knows? And I also remember Unemployment Quest as well as a sort of Kickstarter where I saw it get like $10,000 or something, and I was like, it doesn't look like it requires $10,000 to make, but who knows? It's we'll see what needs to be. But
oh no, it probably didn't. Hey, for all I know, that was that guy's employment. But I'm just saying, even though it's like without Unemployment Quest, there is no actual sunlight. There would be no Little Red Light, nothing. Like this is one of these butterfly effect moments where, believe it or not, I would have never had the idea or thought that I could do it had it not been for that.
I was turned on to Will O'Neill's games by Mark Conforti, or Art Bain, of the RPGmaker.net community, creator of Master of the Wind. Very good developer. And I just remember opening Actual Sunlight, the actual game, and being surprised, and just at the general mood. And I was floored. I was actually floored, and we'll get into that a bit later, I suppose, in the deep dive sections. But as for our second question, what are your favorite kinds of games and/or other media, and what about them inspires you to create? It could be games, could be other things.
I like Minecraft, Fortnite, and Michael Bay movies, and I like how much money they made, and that's why I like to make games, so I can make as much money as Michael Bay.
Yeah.
How's
that going?
Always, sometimes Monsters is designed for maximum profit. It's
absolutely. If you take one look at my work and you're like, God, this guy makes fucking bank.
Action scenes, explosions.
Yeah, for sure.
Michael Bay directed. No, inspirations. Are there any, or are you a silo of
me?
Game development?
Just real life. Like the good shit is real life.
Yeah.
Like we made Karen Outrage Simulator. Obviously, while we were locked indoors and just looking at memes. But like all my good stuff is just based off of real life. I actually when I'm really actually am creating, and I'm in that mode, I don't play anything. I don't really watch anything. I try to avoid. I definitely don't read anything, as I try to avoid contamination. I've long held a theory, and I'm not sure if I agree with it anymore. I have a very different mindset, having shipped Sometimes Always Monsters recently, where I think there's a lot of value in a creator staying isolated, or I used to believe this very heavily, that there's a lot of value in a creator staying heavily isolated, and like, you know, you're gonna mutate your own brain, and it's gonna like become very unique, and the things you'll produce are going to become very unique. Whereas if you are constantly, you know, consuming pop culture, you know, you're actively part of a community, you know, you're in the social world, you're going to become more of the hive mind, and the work you produce will be a little more homogenous with everything else in reality. So I tended to avoid that. But I kind of had a big shift in thought lately, where I'm now trying to actively be more participatory with other human beings.
Oh man, yeah, that is an important thing to think about. Like whether you're singular and you isolate yourself, and whether that creates something good, or whether, and it's also thinking about what you want to get out of your own game development process. What brings you the most happiness? Would it be creating this thing by yourself and sort of releasing it and then the world enjoying it, or would it be more enjoyable to kind of collaborate, have this collaborative process with others as well?
Yeah, the difference between in the two is the feedback you get. Feedback, so you don't know if a thing is good, sucks or not. Like, you could be making total garbage and you won't know. Yeah. And then but same, whereas if you get the feedback, you know, you can kind of like, you'll smooth those edges out until there's nothing left. So it's a hard balance to strike, and I think the best creators are able to figure that out pretty early on in their careers. And I guess I'm getting in the mid of mine, and I haven't, so that'll tell you something.
Yeah.
I think that's very true of comedy, especially. Like, it's very easy to think you're funny. Do you know what I mean? You start, no, but when you work on your own jokes, you start to laugh at your own jokes. But what you're really laughing at is you working on them. Do you know what I mean? In a sense, like, you're starting to think you're funny. So yeah, I think for comedy, it's really, you really benefit. I'm sure for Karen, especially Justin, like that was a huge part of it. Like the feedback to get that just is like, is this funny or am I just losing my mind?
Right. Yeah. Like that was like a 2-day turnaround for the first version before I had people playing it, and then 2 months for the final. And it was all done in the public. Like I literally live streamed the entire development of that game. And, it just came out, and it was also like a crowd pleaser intentionally. Like, I've done my big, I'm a genius games. I'm going to do something that's like, silly and fun and like let everybody have a little laugh.
Yeah, I mean, it worked. I played this recently, and it just it's about becoming the ultimate Karen. Karen in Outrage Simulator. Argue your way through 6 unique stages and unlock your true potential as you demand refunds, battle managers, and crush the underpaid souls of the customer service industry.
Yeah,
I think that's just a genius sort of. When I saw the title of the game, I'm just like, oh, of course this game needs to be made. Like I didn't even think about it beforehand, but it just kind of is like, oh yeah, this works.
Yeah, it's actually all my wife's idea. We were doing a game jam, and I had started building some like really depressing, boring game about like the gig economy. And then she's like, I want to make a game about Karen. And I'm like, all right, that's way more fun than what I'm doing. Let's go. And so she did all the art, and we collabed on the story, and I slapped it together in RPG Maker, and that was the end. That was it. Those
portraits in that game contribute so much with the hairstyles and the interactions. They're just so well directed. I really enjoyed that. As for Will, what are your inspirations when it comes? Do you have the similar kind of stance when it comes to games and other media, or do you derive from them quite a bit?
I mean, I'm like I said, my background is really more in theater. Like that's where I really feel like I learned, like I love to write, and that's where I grew up kind of caring about it. And I think all the time about how RPG Maker in particular is a lot more like a stage play. There's a lot more stagecraft to it. Like I feel like in AAA, like they are influenced by film, obviously, right? Like they have all their cameras, they have all their angles, they have their 3D graphics and their photorealism, and I understand that. To me, that makes sense. It's intuitive. But I feel like when you work in RPG Maker, maybe even just in 2D in general, a lot of the times it's a lot more stagecrafty. Like you are working from one fixed perspective. You have entrances and exits, and the setting remains fixed, and you use lighting a lot of the time to tell story or to focus on things. So for me, yeah, it's really about the influence of theater, I think, is more than anything else. Like I feel like that's where I kind of cut my teeth, and I feel like I still use a lot of that sensibility when I make games today, both RPG Maker ones or ones that are simply RPG Maker-ish. Yeah. So for me, yeah, the short answer there is theater. Like I feel like those are the conversations, and that's how I like derive. And even I think about this more now, even the fact that you can use different portrait art to express really simple emotions. Like we don't have all the facial muscles that the AAA people do, but all you really need for a character is like one happy face, one shocked face, one sad face. And it doesn't matter that you use them over and over again. Like human beings just need the bare minimum amount of information to understand the tone of how something is said, right? So it's a little bit like a mask, or even in RPG Maker just using like the little emotion bubbles. Do you know what I mean? Like Justin, you use those a lot. Like I feel like you like those a lot more than I do. That's all you need. Even though they're repetitive and simple, you don't actually need anything else to set up a piece of dialogue in a simple kind of way. So that's to me, that's a lot more theatrical and less filmic for sure as well. So yeah, so for me, my answer is theater. I'm always going to be influenced by theater, and I feel like working in RPG Maker and in narrative games, it's a really solid footing to go off of.
Yeah, I've never thought of it like that, because I've always thought there was some kind of, like, I was trying to say, is RPG Maker, are the cutscenes sort of like filmic or cinematic? Not really. Are they novelistic? No, there's a visual element to it. Theater is like a nice, because I've heard it said that like film is created with a scalpel. You go right into their faces and you see their minute, emotional kind of facial disfigurations or like changes in face and stuff. Whereas with this, it's sort of like with what's the bigger thing than the scalpel? Like like it's more rough in it, the way it's sort of you can see it from afar. Broader. Yeah, broader, and they create gestures that you can see from afar. So it is very theatrical in a sense. I think that's. I mean,
a good example is just like the stuff that I wrote for on Sometimes Always Monsters. Like I wrote the little films that you go into the theater to see, but all the films that we wrote, those are all like little scenes that are set around very small, like sort of interior locations. The interior, the inside of an interrogation room, just one person's apartment. Like these are all. Like film experiences that still make sense, that could be made to make sense on a stage, right? They're all very like that Glenn Ross type of like deep interior type of setting. So yeah. No, my answer's theater all the way. And I think other, like this is not a tip, but like if you make games in RPG Maker and they're like narrative focused, stop thinking film and start thinking a stage, start thinking plays, because I think you can carry a lot further with it. Rather than trying to do all this like in-depth theater type or film type stuff mentality.
I suppose film's got that sort of show don't tell mentality where and there is a bit of that here, but there's also kind of there's a lot that it's very dialogue heavy still, so it's a bit novelistic, so it's halfway. I think theater is a great way to think of it. I haven't thought about it like that before. Yeah, it's such a great way to think about it, and. I think that's us for the serious topics for now. Let's go into something perhaps a little more lighthearted, perhaps a bit more user-submitted, perchance. We're going into the next section. Yeah, it's called The Question Box. Hey, this is the segment where RPG Maker community users ask questions related to game dev and design that we probably don't know the answers to, but we're going to try. Yes, that's you, dear listener. This is a question from Lord Blue Rouge from the RPG Maker Cola Discord. Go join it now. First is a question for Will O'Neill. What's it like working as an indie game dev in Toronto? Is the community fairly active? Is it different from other places? Is it mostly done online?
So short answer, I mean, right now, of course, with COVID and everything is entirely online. I mean, it's fairly active. Yeah. I mean, I'm active in several game developer discords in the city where people are talking to each other and working on things and going ahead. I mean, we have a pretty broad mix of what's even considered indie here. You have a lot of solo creators, but then you also have people who work at like Cappy or Drinkbox. But even then, it's a fairly small community. And, back before when we could still go to places, there was like a common bar night called Torontaru that everyone would go to. There are typically semi-annual events like Bit Bazaar where people could showcase their games. So yeah, so it's a great city to be an indie dev in, even though it's been a bit shut down. And I think it will go back to being one when all of this is over.
And they have another question. It's kind of a big question, but I'll kind of consolidate it. It's about consoles. I think Will has brought their game to a console. Have you brought a game to a console, Justin?
Yeah, we just shipped on Switch. Doggone Golfing just released on Switch in December.
Oh, excellent. So, both of you probably will be able to answer this question. What was it like to bring...
we did Always Sometimes Monsters is on PlayStation 4 and Android, iOS. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Go get those versions as well. What was it like to bring it to consoles? Was it easy, difficult? What were your experiences like?
Well, the question I'm seeing here is that what was it to bring the game to Sony's handheld? So I am among the few people probably who have actually shipped. I've shipped two games on the Vita. So that is like, kind of obscure. So I think they're maybe asking about the obscurity of that. And the answer is it really is quite obscure. And in terms of the advice I'd give to other developers starting out, I mean, it is not a thing that you want to try to do, I guess, early on. It will take some work and some doing. You will probably have to do things like incorporate. You will have to talk to people and get dev kits and negotiate for those kinds of things. So it's something that I did initially for Actual Sunlight because I was really passionate about the Vita in particular. And I wanted it to be, the kind of first console I went over to. But yeah, it did take some doing, and it was something that I did when Actual Sunlight was already fairly well established, had already launched on Steam, had a fairly good critical reception. So like I had pretty solid footing to do that. So what advice would I give to other developers just starting out? If you're just starting out, I would say, don't do it and don't worry about it. Focus on making your best game, focus on getting it out on itch or Steam, and make sure that it's a winner. Make sure it's something that where it is resonating with people and that it's going to be worth the work and time that it's going to take to bring it to console, because it is going to be somewhat complex. Even with Unity, even with dev kits that are ready to have ports from Unity, you're still going to be looking at a pretty significant of investment of, if not money, then at least time and expertise. So yeah, I would say don't do it. Don't worry about it. Just let that whole console thing go until you know that you've got something that is going to be a bit of a mover on PC and other platforms where it's easier to launch.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're a game developer and you like the technical challenge of dealing with all that stuff and going through certain stuff, go ahead if you just want to do that. But if you are more of a designer and I think the best time spent is for me at least is just making games. I'm not porting them, not doing store updates and these kinds of things. So even if you do make the decision, to port, I would say partner with somebody who's going to take that off of your plate, like I did. Jake does all of our porting stuff, and specifically with RPG Maker, it was a huge hassle. We had to build wrapper programs and because we're working in VX8 and it's not it doesn't run natively on any of the consoles, and it was a huge hassle. But having somebody else doing that allowed me to continue steamrolling ahead with content creation, and making new games, and also getting those games proven in the PC space before we decided to push them ahead into console market.
Yeah, and I also work with a programmer. Shout out to my man Mike Pinto, who is a fellow game developer, and like he's responsible for all that technical stuff on my end. Like I do a lot of it, but the stuff that I can't do, he's always taken on. And for me, that goes back to implementing Steam achievements and doing the first Vita port, but also having done the help with the PS4 port and the Switch port. So yeah, I don't like to sugarcoat this stuff because I feel like sometimes it looks like oh no. I lost my voice.
Oh,
sorry. Sometimes it looks like I'm like a solo playwright who somehow put a game on the Vita, and it's not like that. You do need that technical support, and there is a lot to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what I gain from that is just to get some help. Like, it'll be good to have someone who knows how to do it and to help you out. By that point, probably. If your game is worth bringing to console, then you'll probably have someone who is interested in helping out, or who knows about it already.
It's easy to think too, like, oh, this would be a smash hit if I could just get it on the Switch. It's not like that.
Right.
It's not like that.
Yeah. And I know Lord Blue Rouge personally. They actually make some really fun games like Steamed Hams, but it's RPG Maker 2003.
Oh my god, is that who made that? Oh my god, I fucking love that thing.
Yeah, it's great. And they're well known for breaking technical boundaries in the RPG Maker 2003 of all things.
Lord Blue Rouge, you're amazing. That Steamed Ham is the fucking best thing I've ever seen come out of RPG Maker. Why you are a legend, and I appreciate your work so much. Thank you.
And if you're a great programmer and a developer, which is what me and Justin are not, then you are going to find it is a much smoother transition to do console ports and the like when the time is right for you to do so. But still, wait for a decent hit. Wait for something is worth doing.
Mm. Lord of Blue Ridge would be very happy to hear that because they're so supportive of the RPG Maker community. They're one of the most supportive. They run the RPG Maker archive, which is basically, they're constantly archiving old games and finding them hidden games and lost games and posting them online. So it's very, awesome. Very underappreciated, but I love their work. One of my favorite users of the community. Thank you, Lord Blue Rouge. We'll go on to Frozier's question. First question for Keaton Justin. What was that's him. What was the design process for Always Sometimes Monsters Like? Excellent game, especially in terms of approaching the choice-based angle in RPG Maker, especially considering the amount of story branches are incredibly impressive for the engine. How difficult was it to implement?
I don't know how to make games any other way. I several times through the process of making ASM, I tried to make a flowchart or a branch that would explain or you could follow, but it doesn't work like that. It eventually becomes too unwieldy, and it doesn't. It's when things don't rely on a lot of times we'll set switches or variables based on specific choices, rather than having sort of variables floating in the background, and then if they are in this state, running things in a certain way. So I sort of I just get to a point in a scene, and I say this character is a racist, so let's look at the player's data on what their background is like, or this character is sexist, or what gender they are, or this this character knows this character, so then I look at what choices were made or whatever. It's really very nebulous. I don't chart anything. I don't plan anything. I sort of just go beat to beat. And what's most important for me, especially with the sequel, is the right of refusal. So giving the player the option to just say no to everything.
Yeah.
And or I think about what are all the potentials? What you play the what if game if you were in this situation? What are all of the options that you would consider doing? And not just necessarily making those dialogue choices, but making them active gameplay executions. So, for example, if you're in the warehouse and you're moving the boxes, whether you just dutifully do the thing, or you quit early, what are the ramifications of that choice? And I follow those, in my own psyche, to their natural conclusion. And, I can't feel satisfied if I know there's a choice that could have been there. And because like when I run into those invisible walls of narrative games, I guess, then I get super frustrated when I'm playing games. And so I don't want that in my own game. So I just like look at the individual situations, come up with as many what ifs, and actually deliver on them. And then that's it. It's just a lot of fucking hammered brute force content creation, and there's no other way around it. You can't cheat your way through that much content.
Yeah, because there's so many different like aspects that come into play when considering different narrative branches and things that are occurring. And you have like this currency idea that throughout the game of always sometimes monsters, you have money and you have to somehow get it. But it's like a monetary amount, and then it's balancing with other factors and stuff. So I suppose you'd go from a narrative first kind of perspective to the gameplay, and then kind of balance it afterwards.
I mean, sort of like it's important to have like the goal or the like end point, and then like the journey on there is where all the deviation happens. You know, you just pick where the player's headed towards, and let them like pick their way through it. I make my games entirely chronologically, almost. Like I'll probably like for both games, I think I did the endings. Well, probably a year before launch for Sam, and then maybe like 3 months before launch on ASM. And then I'll like go back and do some backfill after that. But yeah, it's mostly I follow the games chronologically. Which is why they are very front loaded with content. So like the first cities have a little bit more in them than the others because, one, you run at a time and ideas and energy and all that. And also players just like getting streamlined to the end past a certain point.
Yeah. And I think that does sort of make sense because as the ending comes, I reckon, I would think that if you want to nail a particular ending, then the branches will start sort of narrowing out and becoming a sort of singular kind of wave,
Right.
Because it kind of seems like that with decision-based games where a lot of the decisions at the beginning have to be made and then they'll kind of, unless there's like so many different endings, you sort of have to diverge. Not diverge. What's the opposite when you combine the paths?
Yeah, the bloat and pinch. Yeah. So yeah, I think ASM had a little bit more of a convergence at the end, and I think Sam kind of ends up like afraid not, because of the way that the finale is structured. It's something that I'm really, really proud of. You can enter into hundreds of different things like in the finale that can end in. I mean, I'm not going to say there's hundreds of different endings because that's obviously bullshit. But there's a lot, and I like that because it's the end of the series, and I'm never making another one of these again. Thank you. Good night.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that's so cruel about endings too, because I feel like indie developers probably put like a lot of care into sticking those landings in all those varied kind of ways, knowing that they're just fundamentally not the hugest player base. So how many people will see your most obscure content? Where meanwhile, quadruple A games that have millions of players, will have like two very different endings, like shoot the man in the face or shoot your own head off. And it's like, what am I going to do? And it's, it's insufferable, but
they have to make it more obvious because they don't want to waste, quote unquote, waste time on endings that people won't ever, experience. So I guess they have to just, so they have to make a cost-benefit analysis and go, is this worth it? Whereas indie devs can just go, my dreams are infinite, and then they will create stuff that most players will never experience.
Slaughter the whole village or blow up the moon! Like, okay, all right. It's all right.
Yeah. Yeah, so for our next question, I think I'll combine two questions. There was a question by the user, and they've asked multiple questions on this podcast. I always have trouble with their name. U7Q2NBWF.
And what else could it be?
They asked Will, how did he get into doing narrative writing for other games? And I'll also combine that with Frosier's question for Will. I've seen Superliminal played by quite a few big names and gained some popularity. What was it like to go from making small RPG Maker games to making a well-recognized 3D indie title? And would you say any experiences in RPG Maker still reflect in your development today?
So the short answer to the first question and how I got into writing for other games was really just Actual Sunlight. And I think going off the back of that, and I think it's something people want to know about because a lot of people want to write for games and, they wonder like, how do I get into it? And you'll see on Twitter, it'll be like, a lot of people will say, hey, we're hiring for a narrative designer or writer, like send your portfolio and this and that. And I get the feeling that people think it's a lot more open-ended than it is. And that kind of really kills me because I feel like people get their hopes up a lot. By far, the best thing to do if you want to work in writing for games is to make something yourself that is good. There is nothing else that will be a better calling card than that. So don't worry about sending in applications and putting together your resume. Your own game that is well written and that shows that you know how to compose a story and write dialogue is going to speak volumes about you far more than any educational background or job application or whatever else will. I mean, the other way, I suppose, into the industry proper is to just get to know a lot of people and start building really good relationships and just be kind of slick and have a rich parents and go to GDC every year until somebody takes pity upon you. But that's a whole other track. If you want to write for games, just write for games. I know Justin would say the same thing. Like, just do your own work and stand by it and be proud of it and develop your voice. And that's it. That is how I got into doing narrative writing for other games and how I will continue to do it. As far as now to the sad answer, which is what happens when you get to write for other games in terms of Superliminal. What was it like to see it played by a lot of big names and gain some popularity? Well, I'm afraid your reward at the end of it all is that nobody really cares who writes games, and most people will just skip the credits. And the cross section between people who play Superliminal and who will be like, hey, isn't that the guy who also wrote Actual Sunlight? That's like 4 people in the world. And like one of them is on this podcast and the other 2 are my parents. So do you know what I mean? So
for the record, I didn't know you wrote Superliminal until after I beat it.
Yeah, so exactly. Then you see the credits, but it's like, this is the sort of thing. It's not important to people. So, you have to do it as its own reward. And of course you get paid some money, which is nice, but like, there's no glamour to it. Like I keep thinking, if you think like you do that and all of a sudden like Neil Druckmann will resign from Naughty Dog and be like, we're going to put this guy in charge, because he's on his way up. There's no like escalating path like that. That's I'm not surprised that writers think maybe it is that way because it's a very narrative way of looking at the world, right? Escalating stakes and things getting better and more interesting. But the world doesn't really work like that. And, Superliminal was a cool game and I got to write it because I knew some people who were working on it through like a long circuitous route of other relationships that you build up over time. And I'm sure everything actually still does go back to Actual Sunlight. But there's no big glamour in it and there's no big reward at the end of the day. It's just work and you do the best you can. And when you're working on stuff for other people, you do your best to try to see it through their eyes and help them deliver on the vision that they want to see. Because if you've played Superliminal and you've gotten to the ending of it, you will know that it is not reminiscent from a philosophical perspective of the other work that I've done. But it was the message that they tried to get across, and I tried to help them do it to the best of my ability.
That is interesting that, you recognize the difference in, developer intent in your own writing, and you write to what the job you have been asked to do, which, it takes something interesting. It takes a certain kind of perspective to be able to separate yourself like that, I guess.
Well, and I'm lucky because it was already my day job. Like I've already been writing for other people and for corporations and for, things that don't really reflect my personal values or views for years upon years anyways. And I mean, if you want to be a freelance writer or an employed writer or whatever, you kind of have to have that mercenary mindset because there are very, very, very few people who are talented enough, and God knows I am not one of them, to just call my own shots and do it my own way all the time.
Yeah, not everyone can be Hideo Kojima or those giants of the world who can just do whatever they like and put Conan O'Brien in their game just because they want to. As for both of you, are there any particular reasons city settings were chosen for actual sunlight, ASM, and the series? Is the setting reflected on any personal observations or experiences within city life?
I mean, it's based on life experience, and I don't live in the woods anymore. So
yeah, for me, I mean, it's a short answer. Obviously my games are heavily autobiographical, actual sunlight directly, but even Little Red Lie is about Scarborough, which is a part of Toronto where I'm from and where Justin's from too.
Represent.
That's right. And so yeah, for us, it's just, I think for me at least, it is where I'm from. I don't know anything else.
Yeah, I was thinking if it was set in the woods or something, I just imagined a version where it's cabins and all the characters are animals, and it'll be a lot very different game. But I think that makes sense.
But to answer the question, I mean, in good faith, I mean, obviously cities are places where people are close together and yet far apart in a way that I think, speaks to a lot of the content we do. They're alienating places despite the fact that you're surrounded ostensibly by civilization. And those themes absolutely, play heavily into my work and certainly into Justin's as well.
Yeah. Also, I don't feel like I got a lot of choice in like how the game was going to come out. It's just like, you get that spark of inspiration and this is what it is. It's your job now to spit it out. You don't get to choose so much, in my opinion.
Like, where do the bourgeois live? They live in the city, high rises and so on.
But COVID has sort of changed all that a lot too, because it's like you live in the city and you thought, oh, I still feel so alone. But now you know what it's like to really be alone. Now you really, you know what I mean? So it's, I feel like it's been a lot of...
Will. We're all in this together.
Yeah, no, I know.
Alone together.
Same storm, different boats.
Yeah.
Yeah. As for our next question, which is by Orochi, it's for both. I guess, how did you come up with the style? Is it inspired by something? And I think they gave a comment which was about personal attachment, personal aspect, and if I think we kind of answered that, but they have an interesting part at the end here, which is also about reception. Has reception always been positive? If do you get things like, oh, this is like this series, or what do you feel about the general kind of comments that you get from people?
So, I mean, if they mean visual style at all, the visual style of both my games was specifically, I did not want to look like a normal RPG Maker game.
Yeah,
like my 100% goal in both versions, or in both games, sorry, ASM and SAM, was to have as much custom artwork in there as possible, not use any tile sets that people were familiar with. We ended up actually making our own tile set that is now available, but it was a lot of like just trying to do something to make it look not standard. And that ended up evolving into the parallax backgrounds, heavily Photoshop. The sprite style in the first game, not so deviant from the typical style, but a little bit. And then in Sometimes Always Monsters, we had a lot of experience with the engine at that point. And I just let our art director, Emilio, go crazy, and he came up with this really dope art style, especially with the sprites. That we just like loved, and it doesn't look like any RPG Maker game I've ever seen, so we just stuck with it. And I like the realism and the detail that you could find in it. And then in terms of like reception, Always Sometimes Monsters was like adored the second it came out.
Yeah.
Which I don't understand. I mean, like, there's definitely people who were like very, very familiar with Devolver games and expecting like heavy action experience or whatever, and so they didn't like it. But we got a lot of praise pretty early on, and that was fun letting all that go to your head. And then when I shipped Sam, we actually came out the gate swinging with a mostly negative review, because we had a lot of fans of Always Sometimes Monsters expecting like a duplicate, right? They were expecting a very downtrodden, depressing story, very much in the vein of the first game, and it's not. It's a very different experience about a different point in life, with a different tone. And it took a little while to weather that, and now we're positive. But that it was a very, very shocking experience, especially because I was like, oh my god, that's the downside of working in a closed box for so long, is that you don't really get a sense of like what people are expecting of your game.
Yeah,
and sequels are tough, and I don't know if I'm going to do another one, but that's kind of the thing. I didn't get so much comparisons with games, but yeah, that was the reception.
Yeah, the game, the negative review was by Cubed3, so everyone go DDoS that site, bring it down. No, yeah, it's. I
mean, you could.
You could.
I won't say you don't.
It's your choice.
It's your decision. No, I just think a lot of people just misunderstood the game at start and were expecting something very different than what it is. But now people are like finding the game on their own. That's a funny thing about the Steam algorithm, is that it eventually like starts, the longer your game is there, it starts catering to people who are going to actually appreciate it and understand it a little more. And it's kind of done a big 180 in terms of like impression.
As for you, Will, I suppose Actual Sunlight was such a stark game in contrast to what it was going on around as well. What did you feel about the reception actually to your games in general?
Well, I mean, in terms of like the style, just to note this, I mean, unlike ASM, like I actually used Lunaria's modern tile set for VX Ace, and like I was talking about Unemployment Quest is like if there was no Unemployment Quest, there'd be no Actual Sunlight, but there probably wouldn't be one either if it hadn't been for that tile set, because the modern tile set gave me immediately access to like televisions and modern chairs and desk, and it made me able to visually put together the thing. And I remember sending her a message on some forum, like, right after it came out, being like, hey, here's a key for it, and thank you so much. And her just being like, oh yeah, no problem, thanks a lot. And like, it just like rolls like water off the duck of her back. It's just like crazy that it was just a tile set that so many other people use, but it was really instrumental in me being able to get it out there, because there were no real other tile sets that weren't like fantasy or sci-fi themed at the time. So shout out to her for creating that tile set, that real world kind of look and feel that allowed me to do it. By the time I got around to Little Red Lie, I was able to make a totally custom tile set in the modern world with Alina Sechkin and Gabby Durenzo and Christina Danilon and like a lot of other talented artists. But yeah, so definitely, but it was just like basic RPG Maker community stuff that I was able to purchase that allowed me to able to do it initially. Reception wise, I mean, people, generally speaking, I think people appreciate Actual Sunlight. Some people don't like it because they can't relate to it, and some people dislike it because they can relate to it. I think the people who hate Actual Sunlight the most are the people who know exactly what it's about. Like, I see those negative reviews from people, and like you look at their Steam accounts and it's like, oh yeah, they own thousands of video games and they've spent thousands of hours playing it, and their negative review is like, this is all bullshit. It's not bullshit. You know why it's not bullshit. And then, moving into Little Red Lie, I think the problem with Little Red Lie is that I kind of made an Actual Sunlight for people who really, really loved Actual Sunlight and who were willing to like double and triple down on commitment to the format that I put forward, which is just not only a lot of reading, but a lot of like pure reading, a lot of like just white text on a black screen. And it goes on, Actual Sunlight is about an hour and a half to 2 hours long. A Little Red Lie is probably closer to 6 to 8 hours. It's like, two entirely different stories with two characters in parallel. So it's really complex. And it's like, it's the game of mine that I will always love the most forever. It is even closer to my heart than Actual Sunlight is, even though Actual Sunlight is directly about me. But I totally understand why it was not really that successful and why it had, it's intensely loved by a much smaller group of people. And I never really had any illusions of that. As I was getting towards the end of making it, I remember thinking to myself, yeah, Actual Sunlight made like a decent splash and like, got people interested in your future work. And this game is going to kill that a little bit. But I was really committed to doing it the way I wanted to do it. And I'm glad that I did. So, it got great reviews and I think it always will, but it's never going to be for a lot of people.
Yeah, it seems like different. For me, simply, I would just be completely honest and say that I knew about Actual Sunlight, but I hadn't heard about Little Red Lie until you mentioned it. So it could also just be a visibility issue. I don't know.
Well, that's true. I mean, honestly, yeah. Like by 2017, a lot had changed, right? Like there's a lot more competition. Steam was a lot more open, and also like Actual Sunlight kind of came up in an era, similar with ASM, where there seemed to be kind of a moment and a lot of interest in these kinds of games. I mean, even Actual Sunlight itself was incredibly in the shadow of Depression Quest, which was, a game about similar themes and topics, and it was massive. It was gargantuan.
Yeah.
And of course, it also ended up being the premise to a lot of terrible things in indie games. And I think, I honestly think Gamergate killed off kind of like a generation of smart gamers. Like I think there was a lot of people who were into intelligent, thoughtful, literary video games who after all those events or within a year or two of it were just like, I'm just going to move on with my life and do something else. So I think we there was a lot of bodies over that. So it's kind of sad.
Yeah. I feel like Depression Quest is honestly one of my favorite games. It's an exceptional game where, that melding of narrative and gameplay, even in Twine, it's just such a simple kind of concept, and it just to have it, dealing with subject of depression and psychology, be so accurately portrayed through gameplay in a visual novel like this, it was really good to see. I think Depression Quest is an exceptional game. Yeah.
It goes on and everything repeats itself. It seems like every 2 or 3 years now. Now I realize now what the loop is now that I've been through it more than once, but you'll see like editorials where it's like, finally games are ready to tackle mental health. And it's like, we've been through this exact cycle like 3 times now.
Yeah.
And I think because gaming journalism is so unstable, I'm sure Justin could speak to this, there's like a continuous churn, and there's always like new young freelancers who think they're seeing something for the first time. So it's kind of sad that it's not a more stable profession, because I think it would lead to a broader outlook on where everything has gone over the past 15, 20 years in general, whereas there's almost nobody who has that kind of perspective on it.
Yeah, it's such an important topic to discuss. Our next section is the deep dive. In this section, we dive deep into one of each of our guest projects and figure out what went on during the process, inspirations, and elsewise. We've selected 2 projects. By one project by each of our guests. For Will O'Neill, it'll be Little Red Lie, which we have obviously heard a little bit about already, but we'll kind of go over a little more. And then the Always Sometimes Monsters and Sometimes Always Monsters, the series by Justin or Keaton. And we'll just kind of go a little bit into each. But I'll just introduce Little Red Lie first. Now, I played a little bit of this game. It plays in the manner of, say, a 2D top-down RPG, and the sole means of interaction is to actually lie to others. You have to try and find out the best times to lie. Players can reshape the lives of characters they're playing as. And the 2 main characters, there's a middle-class woman who's struggling to get by, and a happy, rich, and powerful man looking to accumulate even more wealth. I'll say also gives like a minor spoiler warning if you're interested by this, by now, just go and play Little Red Lie, go and play Always Sometimes Monsters. I'll give the guests free reign to sort of go into spoilers from here on out. So this is your spoiler warning. Go play those games. The game revolves around systems, say, perpetuating feelings of hopelessness in modern capitalism after financial crisis and also economic inequality. So you have Sarah, which is a 38-year-old who's been forced to live with her parents while contending with stagnant wages. And then there's also Arthur Fox, which is a wealthy, charismatic financial guru and motivational speaker, and who lies in order to make even more money. So this game, I was impressed by this game even visually. As soon as I opened it, I was like, wow, this is an upgrade from Actual Sunlight, and almost, and graphically and music-wise, it just was like, wow, a lot of thought and effort has been put into this. yeah, what did you seek to accomplish with this game? If actual sunlight was, say, an inflicting expression of depression, what is Little Red Lie?
So I think, the first parallel between the two of them is definitely that whereas Actual Sunlight was about a perspective on depression from the inside out, right? From the interior monologue of a person going through it. Little Red Lie, through one of its characters, Melissa, who's the sister of the main character, Sarah, that is sort of a look at a depressed person from the outside looking at them. So whereas in Actual Sunlight, it was all about Evan's thoughts and his feelings, in Little Red Lie, it's from Sarah's perspective, and she's looking at her sister, who is basically the Evan Winter in her life, and looking at, this person who's depressed. And it's a way of seeing, not only how the depressed person accepts, reflects themselves, but how depression and how those kinds of struggles can like echo out and the damage it causes to, to the people around them. So Melissa, is suffering with all the same problems that Evan was, but now you're not seeing it from her perspective. You're seeing it from the perspective of a person whose life is being really negatively impacted, because Sarah's seeing what Melissa's depression is doing to her, what it's doing to their parents, what it's doing to their financial security and to the future of their home and what it means for their family. So for me, it was a real way of reflecting and thinking about not just myself and my condition, but what have I put the people potentially in my life through going through these things, and what have I done to the hope that they would have had for me, and how they wanted to see me turn out, the people around me. And in real life, I'm an only child, so I'm only looking at it from the perspective of maybe my parents and my extended family. But to me, that was the difference. I wanted to say hey, you know what? I've done this thing about depression, but a lot of people have done depression from the perspective of I'm depressed. Here's what I think. I want to think about how does my depression affect the people around me? So that's the first thing. And then from there, it just started to sprawl into being a game that was more about economics and money, because I felt like as the years was going by, I was less interested in depression and mental health as a clinical thing, and I was more interested in it as a life thing. Yeah. It's like if you're broke, if you have no future, if you have no opportunities, then at a certain point, you should be depressed. At a certain point, it makes sense. At a certain point, it's condescending for people to say to you, oh, you should go to therapy, you should just take medication, because it's no, listen, my problem is that my life is bad. If I can't address that, then what am I really supposed to be able to do, no matter what medications may be out there, no matter what therapist I may be able to talk to? So trying to examine that and look at the economic realities that inform us and who we are as people is what Little Red Lie was also about as well. So there's more to it, but that's where I'll leave. I mean, that was the growth from one project to the next for me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it was so funny that I didn't, when I first invited Will and Justin to the podcast, I didn't realize how intertwined their projects were, it was just coincidence. I saw who they were following on Twitter and then kind of made the connection. But yeah, it seems when I played, Always Sometimes Monsters a couple of years ago, and then when I played Little Red Lie recently, and I haven't completed it, it was just the match was there. I saw themes that were shared. I'll talk a little bit about Always Sometimes Monsters for those who don't know. The game puts players in the role of an author who receives notice that the love of their life is marrying someone else across the country within a month. After being evicted from the apartment on the East Coast, players then head to the West Coast in order to intercept the wedding and win back the love they lost. So there's a lot of narrative. There's a narrative sequence, and there's a lot of choices, high emphasis on choice, and players walk around to explore the city, interact with NPCs, and just do a lot of non-linear kind of means to earn money so that they can progress to the next location. But you have to sometimes make choices that society may seem as morally ambiguous or even frowned upon. So I watched a great film. It's a minor spoiler for Parasite. I watched where a character described another character saying, "She's rich, but she's still nice." And then another character retorted, "Not rich, but still nice. Nice because she's rich, Hell, if I had all this money, I'd be nice too."
Mm-hmm.
And that was the kind of thing I got. Did the choice in the Monster series to, I suppose, you compromise morality in order to get a paycheck come from this idea that only the rich can afford to be moral, or was it something a little bit more complex than that?
I think that's something that's actually better explored in the sequel, Sometimes Always Monsters. In the first game, it was more of a duel between the idea of self-sacrifice and self-preservation. Like, I hated the notion of like good and evil, and I've always kind of been interested in the scrupulous questions, you know, like the old, would you steal a loaf of bread to feed your family kind of thing. For me, the choice, the ethics of the choices in the games came down to around the idea of like, if the only way to get what you want is to harm others, like, are you willing to do that? Like, are you willing to take what you want, or are you capable of giving up what you need? There are definitely, like, if you really do want to play that game as typically moral as you can, you know, then you probably aren't going to get very far in it, or you're going to have an incredibly difficult / boring time doing really shitty work, and like it's intentionally designed to be boring gameplay that you have to like grind through. Or you can just, like, you know, steal a little money from the old lady and like pickpocket at the coat check, and you know, just lie and cheat and, you know, get through the game really, really easy. But like, and then it kind of comes to a head when you actually try and, like, you know, get this satisfaction of love, and, you know, you're aware of all these horrible things that you've done. And that's when it sort of like kind of meets its purpose. It was never really about good or evil, but I definitely think that, like, we explore the, you know, when you have money, like the sequel, you know, you start off with a ton of money. Yeah. Like you're just rich, and you're successful, and you're married, and life is going really, really well. And you walk around this world where suddenly there's all of these opportunities to affect people with that money. But it's like, at the same time, you know, like, do you want to like hold on to it all and, like, you know, keep yourself up there, or are you willing to like risk falling down again? And perpetuating that infinite circle of success and failure and success and failure and that kind of thing. I definitely agree with the idea behind rich people have the capacity to be nice, but it also conflicts with like this. We talked about that the road trip I took. The first interview I did there was with Genova Chen, and he said something that's stuck in my brain. It's like, I think it's like a relatively old idea, but he told me, like, you know, a guy in the city has no time to help you, but a guy lost in the woods has all the time in the world to help you. You know, so there's a bit of a contradiction in that, like, wealth affords you the ability to be nice, but we often forget that, like, wealth requires you to, like, play hard at that game and keep it. And so you don't necessarily get to stay nice. Whereas if you've just given up completely on everything, you can afford all of the luxuries that you can provide, as small as they may be. So I don't know. It's like, it's one of those interesting things that I think, like, generates really fun game, because you can keep looking at it from a billion different angles and, like, exploring it with a bunch of different attitudes. And I think people will continue to make games about the struggle between, you know, ethics and money, for as long as we'll keep playing games. Yeah, it seems like both games as well, Little Red Lie and the Always Sometimes Monsters series, seems that it begins, they have this kind of dichotomy of the dystopia, or the world where people do morally objectionable things, and also the interesting, it's the fact that it's an interesting world that when you do these things. So it feels like you're being locked out of an interesting world by behaving according to these rules. So that kind of goes with the lying fact in Little Red Lie, where we have this dichotomy between dystopia, which is where everything is horrifying. There's a lot of, you know,
conflict, and you are the hero to fight against bad things that are coming against your life. Whereas reality kind of numbs you down, and you're just continually forever exhausted. In this reality sort of thing. And I think it's something healthy about coming to terms with that, at least. It's funny that the game begins with some pointed questions, and I will give a quick content warning here for because I think it's worth discussing for suicide. So I'll just give that front. If people aren't comfortable with continuing, we'll talk about that. You can stop off here. At the beginning, it asks you a series of questions about your finances and personal living, and it asks you if it's okay. It asks you first up, it's okay if we ask you a few questions. Do you earn more than 51K or whatever US dollars? Did you gain it via criminal investments, or did you inherit it? And then the question, would you rather commit suicide than be in poverty? What was your rationale behind asking these questions, and did that sort of come as a kind of central part of the game?
I think, if you've never been poor, and I haven't, I come from a middle class background, you have to wonder, are there things that I would think are so unthinkable that I consider them worse than dying? Is there pain that's worse than death? And is the thought, of being truly poor, being homeless, like having to live on the streets, having to face violence potentially, having to potentially turn to a life of crime, so on and so forth. If you have no experience of anything like that, is that more terrifying to you than the idea of dying? And I think, even though no one would say so, I think for a lot of people it is. If you have no experience with that, it's so unthinkable, and it seems like suffering that is so unimaginable that you almost feel like, well, I'd rather just the lights go out. So it's a way of sort of preparing the player to have that mindset as they go into the game, and they come into it as Sarah Stone, who's like just lost her job, just moving home, who realizes that like her level of debt is only going to rise. She's getting older. She's probably never going to be able to get another job. When her family money runs out, that could be it for her and her sister. And she's just sort of living in this bubble that she realizes in the next couple of years could be getting ready to burst. And it's something that I think is probably existentially terrifying for a lot of people who grew up middle class and who always thought, like, I'll have a job my whole life. I'll be able to retire. Like, that's what my parents were like. That's what my aunts and uncles, everyone I've known, were like. And coming into like your late 30s and early 40s, realizing like, oh my God, like the way the world is going is fucked. Like, I could end up broke. I could end up with really no options. I could end up in a situation where I have no money, where nobody's going to employ me because I'm too old and I don't have any real skills. And just having to face that fear and having to kind of go to sleep every night, even though you're not broke yet, thinking about it and realizing that like you're not prepared for it. And what are you going to do? So I felt like putting people in that mindset was a really important way to getting them ready to walk in Sarah's shoes, and also to understand like and how callous somebody like Arthur Fox is.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean, it's very evident the kind of questions that are asked in that regard, particularly as it goes on. I'll also ask some perhaps more engine-related questions to both of you. I mean, it seems that Sometimes Always Monsters. It was still created in RPG Maker, correct? VX8. You've still decided to stay with RPG Maker VX8, whereas Will decided to move on to Unity, and in particular, I think it was Adventure Creator.
Yeah, Adventure Creator, which is a plugin for Unity, which is great, which I basically use to recreate RPG Maker in Unity. I mean, you'll see Little Red Light was totally prototyped in RPG Maker, and I think if you look at it, it's obvious that it was. But yeah, for the sake of console porting, because I don't have a Jake Reardon of the Vagabond Dogs who could just build a wrapper around RPG Maker, I moved over to Unity, and I like it.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I mean, let's talk a bit about that, I suppose, from Justin's perspective, the reason why you've decided to stay with RPG Maker VX8. Is there a particular?
So we made ASM in VX8, and then we wanted to have save imports to the sequel. So when you finish ASM, you can just like copy your save file over with no hassle. And so we just stayed in the same engine. It's literally the same project file. We didn't even start a new project file.
Right.
I mean, we've made games in other engines since, but for the Monster series, like it started in VX-Ace and it'll die in VX-Ace.
Yeah.
And you say that I suppose with Sometimes Always Monsters, it was an expansion on. It was you went a different direction to Always Sometimes Monsters. I guess that this is kind of the end of the story. It's it's like a two-parter thing, and then you're going to move on to other things from here.
They're a dyad. It's a circle, right? So like ASM is the climb up the ladder, and Sometimes Always Monsters is the fall down the slide. And if the player wants to climb up the ladder again, that's all theirs. But the two work in sort of a tandem, going around and around and around and around. And that's why we didn't on a technical level, they are, despite looking completely different, they are the same project file. We did a hell of a lot of we slapped that engine, it's 720p. It runs 1 billion events simultaneously. There's way more parallel processing than it can natively handle. Just a lot of special customization, unique storage systems. I won't get into the details of all the little
terrifying.
things.
It's terrifying.
Yeah. But
a maze of code.
yeah, no, it is quite a lot of stuff. We used all 999 common events. I don't have any more switches or variables left. We've used it all. We've maxed out that engine on that project.
I didn't realize it was that intense. That's big.
Yeah, no, it's wildly complex. Especially Sometimes Always Monsters is a lot more systems oriented, sort of emergent design, and rather than being here's a scene and the character speaks now and then you push A to pick the choice. It's okay, so you have a character and they need to eat and you can cook and that will increase their necessity to go to the bathroom at a certain time, or it'll affect their sleep cycle, or you look at a porno and it makes you horny, and so when you go to bed then you want to annoy your spouse for sex, or maybe your spouse has been denied, you haven't been sleeping in bed for a couple of days and now your spouse is missing you, and then you have some romantic interactions with them that way. There's a lot of systemic things that are just happening based off of a lot of variable interplays, and we have this one event that happens when you go to sleep, and that pulls on 50 different other common events, and they all intersync with each other in a way that I probably couldn't accurately chart if my life depended on.
Yeah.
And this is a divergence in our design philosophies. For the life of me, I would never give a shit about this shit. There's just no way. I remember when Justin,
I've got fucking birds.
I know. It's when I think what's at SwagCon at the beginning or whatever, you guys went through that whole thing where you can look out the bay windows and there's cars driving by. It's what the fuck are you guys doing? This is 4 years into development. And hey, but you know what? People have to be particular and they have to do it their own way.
Right.
I'm as serious as much as fun as I'm making of it. There's nothing is indie but doing it the way you want it to be done.
Yeah.
I want to have birds that are on the ground, and when you walk near them, they fly away and they land on a roof, and then they look at you suspiciously every time you walk by.
You know what? It's
That's
Jake's
the way.
problem.
And if they fly into a car that happens to be passing by using the active car traffic system, and they're not stopped at a red light, then suddenly, bird got smushed, and now there's dead bird on the ground. And what if I want to have characters, interact with that,
Yeah. This is the problem. These are the echoes of real life. There's too much shit happens.
Yeah.
There's too much stuff in real life. I wish I want to roll back previous version of life.
And honestly, I'm spoiled too, because I have the benefit of a worldview in which there's almost no choice and everything is predetermined anyways. So I get to just write one path, because I think all the shit that's going to happen to you is going to happen anyways.
Yeah. So basically, you're viewing as Sometimes Always Monsters as a fantasy of sorts, where different things can happen.
I mean, the world of actual, I mean, the world of ASM and Sam it's realistic, but it's also fantastical and exaggerated at the same time. And I think that's the part that really does come genuinely from Justin's worldview. Like when he talks about vision and needing to work alone, like that is the way he sees this world. And it is important. It has its own kind of integrity, as out there as it is.
I think the truth, also part of the truth is like, I honestly actually do believe in the deterministic world the way Will does. And I think making the games this complex with this much variety and this much potential is my way of like rebelling against a deterministic universe.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the science, there is no other way about it. There is no such thing as free will. It's all a lie, and this is my inevitable path of trying to fight against that. I was predestined to.
Yeah. I mean,
I believe in free will, but I believe, there's so much inclination for some things that it might as well not be free will. Do you know what I mean?
Free will, why'd I get charged?
And I mean, that's kind of undercut by the very fact that your game is determined by code and variables that I don't know if they're randomized or not, but who knows? Yeah, but you don't see that under the hood, so I suppose people have that illusion of free will.
In games, the illusion of choice. The illusion.
Yeah.
In life, the illusion of choice.
Unlike life. Yeah, I mean, those lifesome elements excite me. I really want to try the game now because I was wondering if it was just the exact same as Always Sometimes Monsters, but it seems totally different, and I am actually very excited to try out that game. As for Little Red Lie, we could either go into I think we'll talk a little bit about Adventure Creator and how you sort of how did you go about recreating RPG Maker and Adventure Creator, and was it all wine and roses, or were there some good and bad things, flaws? It looks amazing. It looks gorgeous, like smooth animations, and you can do close-up shots that you couldn't be able to do in the RPG Maker engine. But yeah, you might be able to, but I wouldn't know how to. But I mean, there are a lot of little things, like you're right, even in the UI, like the subtle way that like dialogue boxes fade in and fade out. I'm not sure how, again, once you get into like RPG Maker, I guess like MV, there's probably a lot more things open. But at the time, this is like 2016, 2017, this is pre-MV or just around the time it came out. So I was already in motion. So I really did need to be over in Unity and doing these things. Certainly things that I had no idea how to do in VX Ace. But yeah, there was a little bit of difficulty to it. Adventure Creator itself is like a Unity recreation of a tool called AGS, the Adventure Game Studio. Oh yeah.
But everything at the end of the day is just pixels moving around on the screen and dialogue boxes. So there's always going to be a way to do it. So it wasn't too difficult, and I liked the working environment. Like being in Unity, you can actually just move things around that shape your working environment differently. One of the things that still makes me want to rip my face off about RPG Maker to this day is just the stupid, like the message event and like the forced, is it still like 4 lines and it has to be, and you can't change the size of that window. Justin, is it still like that?
I think so.
Brutal. Like it's just about, like so much of doing good work is being able to set up an environment that you find comfortable, even if it's not any different. And like RPG Maker is so inflexible in that regard. And it wasn't until I got into Unity where I'm like, okay, I can take panels and windows and move things around into a way that feels natural for me to write them. And like, to me, that makes all the difference. So even though I didn't find it that difficult to recreate the output of RPG Maker in Unity, the fact that I was able to reshape my working environment a lot more flexibly made all the difference, especially in taking on a project that was much longer than actual Sunlight. Like Justin, I don't know if you would agree with me, but I think a huge part of what took Sam Sometimes Always Monsters along to develop as it did was just because it's RPG Maker is just such a daunting tool to make something of that scope in. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like there's a gag I run on my Twitch stream where opening the character sprite changer, like to change a different sprite, it literally takes 8 seconds because there's too many damn files in the thing. Every time I want to change a sprite, it literally takes me 8 seconds for all of those files to load up and for me to, before I can even begin scrolling. Fucking scrolling! There's no search function.
No, I know I know, like
it's a bad engine. It's not good. It's good for making small, quick idea to release things, but no, any sensible person would have switched engines 1,000 years ago. I've had so much faster progress using more modern engines. That's sorry, RPG Maker community.
We're not supposed to be saying this on this podcast.
Fine.
It's not good.
Look, somebody needs to say it. Look, I'll say it. Look, guys.
I know, but it's so ungrateful. But Justin, it made us. It made us, and
I'm aware.
It really did.
I'm aware. It made me into an insane person.
Yeah. No, it's good for smaller scope, stuff. Yeah, but it just that's a thing. It's
good for
really
it's good for your project, dear listener. You certainly shouldn't think about changing. It's perfect for whatever you're doing at this moment, and don't listen to me. I'm just a crazy person.
And hey, who knows? Maybe someday they'll release a version of RPG Maker that is actually an update
good?
that actually rips the honest and true guts out of it and brings in a more sophisticated development environment. And
RPG Maker feels a little bit like Pokemon at the moment. Sort of. Redoing the same thing sometimes, but the formula that works apparently for a particular purpose. That's what I'll say.
It's perpetually trapped in this in between of like there's the people that are listening to this are obviously like interested in game development. They want to make games and they want to make games of a particular scope, and then there's this other half of RPG Maker users that are not actually interested in making real like shippable games. They just want to goof around and have a little bit of fun, maybe make some games and self-inserts and that kind of thing. And satisfying those two audiences is why I think RPG Maker has these short limitations, right? It has these limitations to keep it simple for those people who want to make a quick little thing where, look, it's me and my friends in our Dungeons and Dragons group, and here's that story about when we killed those goblins, and isn't that cool? And you can do that in 20 minutes, and that's great. But then, when you actually try and take this tool and use it to make a large-scale project, that's when those limitations really, really, really start to hurt you.
I think you're being generous. I just want to resize the fucking window.
Yeah, but if you start doing that, then where does it end? If you give a mouse a cookie, man, before long, they're not going to have that audience of people who just like dicking around with it. But I honestly, to be fair, this might be a thing where like Gen Z's disinterest in making RPG Maker games might be the thing that turns around and like makes the windows finally be able to resize, because there's young kids I don't think are interested in RPG Maker. Honestly, this is a thing that we're like, it's an aging demographic.
How about this? How about we should make our own fucking RPG Maker?
With
by which I mean you and me compile like a list of grievances, and then Jake has to actually do the whole thing.
I'm for this plan. You have my support 100%.
Or you can give that list to me, and I will read it out before Touch Fuzzy, the community manager, which I'm having a podcast episode with soon. So.
RPG Creator by Vagabond Dog coming 20XX.
Yeah.
You heard it here first on RPG Maker Cola.
I think it's important. I'm not sponsored by Digica, so feel free to dog it however you like. I won't dog it anyway.
Look, obviously, I like the engine. I've been in it for like a decade. Like, of course, I'm going to have grievances with it, but I don't think I would have stayed with it for so long if I didn't also love it.
Yeah.
I still like it.
There's a charm to it, yeah. We can talk crap about it, but it still has some place in our hearts, obviously. I think we'll wrap it up here. I'll just give a little bit more context to Little Red Lie, because I don't think I've highlighted one of the most important parts, which is the lying aspect. Every lie is highlighted in red, and there's different types of lies, and I found that intensely interesting. There's the different lies of commission, omission, influence, making untrue statements, deceiving, but then sometimes you just leave things out or you lie to yourself. I think it's really, really clever the way that it does all that kind of stuff, and I encourage everyone to go check that out. Go get Little Red Lie on Steam or wherever you play games, and also go get Always Sometimes Monsters and Sometimes Always Monsters, and basically all the games by our guests today. They're good. Yeah, I think we'll end off here. If you had one thing, I have one more question. If you had one thing to say to our listeners today, what would it be?
If you want to make a game, just stop asking questions and go do it. Just start making games today. Like, you can do it. It's not that hard. I'm an idiot and I can do it. So
I want to say, if you want to write for games, same thing. Just start writing. Get RPG Maker and make your own thing. Just get a simple tool that's going to allow you to showcase the best of your ability and conceal your lack of other abilities.
Yeah. Work on your strengths. Try not to work on your weaknesses. A lot of listeners listen to this while developing themselves, so they'll probably, I'm already doing it kind of thing. But
if that's the case, then I have one more other piece of advice. If this is your first project, I want you to realize that as important as you think it is, in the length of your career, it will be but a blip. Don't put all of your eggs in this one basket. I mean, put everything you've got into it in terms of like effort and passion and everything like that. But recognize that this one game does not define you forever. You're going to make more games, you're going to make more things, and it's just going to be one of many, many awesome things that you do in your life. So don't overthink it, don't overstress it, and don't make it like your whole identity, because it's not worth it. It's bad. That leads a bad road.
I want to add on to that to get ahead of it, because Justin, the problem with you and me is we both made games and our first games were reasonably successful. But I want to make something clear. I had already been working as a professional writer for 7 or 8 years by the time I made Actual Sunlight. I was 31 years old. I was already a lot older than probably a lot of the young game developers coming to this. I had professional experience. I had the benefit of an education that I was lucky enough to have. I had so many advantages that you don't see. So even though it was my first, project, this and that, I had done so much writing before, so many things before it. Actual Sunlight was the culmination of a lot of not only my skills, but of stuff that's happening in my life. And same with Justin. Like, you were a journalist, you did all this other stuff. So don't believe anything.
I tricked
don't
a bunch
believe
of
anything.
Rich guys. Investing in me quite heavily.
It's true. Well, no, for you, it's true. You had a lot of good relationships. So like, don't believe anything you hear about people's first projects. There's always a ton of stuff in the shadows just behind it.
Yeah, it's an iceberg.
Go off and do that fundamental work yourself. And it will not be your first thing by far.
It's that iceberg idea that there's, so much underneath the surface that all the things you do kind of contribute to who you are and what you eventually end up creating. Your first project may be 15 years after you've been in the community, but everything you've experienced up to that point will contribute to it.
Absolutely.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on board the RPG Maker Cola podcast machine. Will and Justin, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, man. Cheers, fellas.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I forgot to plug or promote anything you'd like here. Your Twitter. Where can we follow you? How can we get your games?
I am streaming development on Twitch now every day, 1 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at twitch.tv/vagabonddog, and you can buy all my games on Steam, on Switch, on PlayStation 4, and mobile. Buy my games and donate all your money to me on Twitch. Thank you.
At Vagabond Dog on Twitter. And join the Discord as well. Good Discord.
And me, you can follow me at Will O'Neill on Twitter, and that's pretty much it. I don't stream anywhere. I'm going to be trying to take kind of a low profile this year and work on some stuff, and so that's it. So go find Justin, because I'm not interested.
Yes.
Perfect.
And buy all their games. Actual Sunlight, Little Red Lie, Guildmaster Story. I can't remember if that's a commercial game or not.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. That's
Guildmaster Story.
Excellent.
Play Guildmaster Story.
Yeah, go. I need to play that too. All right, and thank you for listening, dear listener. I hope you're having a good time. Listening to this podcast. Until next time, come join the RPG Maker Cola Discord. We have a lot of fun there, and we kind of just give feedback on certain projects that you might have, and just have a good time. Thank you so much for listening. Bye, everybody.